Welcome into WFRV Sports Night. Another night to talk about the Green Bay Packers, but unfortunately, another night to talk about a Green Bay Packers loss. Cameron's there with you again, rolling solo, riding solo, like that one song that I can't remember who sings it. Gosh, it's going to bug me all night. But let's talk about the Packers and, well, what's bugging this team, what's bugging the entire Green Bay community is this Packers team can't seem to score. Wild stat out there. One touchdown in their last 18 first half drives. I mean, in that stretch of 18 drives over the last 4 games, they have more fumbles in the first half. And they have 8 punts out of the 18 drives, but they have 2 fumbles and only 1 touchdown in those 18 drives over the last 4 games in the first half specifically. Obviously, in that first half of the Eagles-Packers games, there was no score. The defense did their job through 3 quarters, and even through the fourth. That catch by Devonta Smith was ridiculous, but the Packers fall 10-7 and not much optimism offensively, or at least that comes from the perspective of someone that sees this team on a daily basis and knows the potential of that offense, maybe even through the verbiage and the vernacular of what those players say and express. I mean, the defense is doing all they can. The offense is just not good enough. And you kind of had an idea of that opening up the season. Okay, this defense can be great, and at times they have shown weaknesses, but there hasn't been a consistent, gosh, this defense under Jeff Hafley, this isn't Super Bowl caliber. But there have been way too many instances, Matt LaFleur play calling with that offense, where you kind of just shake your head. So speaking of the head man, every single morning we start, in this case, it was the afternoon. We start off the day with talking with Matt LaFleur. No practice that we got to shoot today. It was just a walkthrough for the players. They didn't even have practice. They'll have practice over the next 2 days. An odd short week where they kind of just lose one day rather than it being a short week of Sunday to Thursday. It's a Monday to Sunday. So they get the 2 days to practice on Thursday, Friday, but that Wednesday is just a walkthrough as their Monday would be on a normal week. So let's get to head coach Matt LaFleur he got to watch that tape back for the first time and just everything else in between, including an injury update on the guy that snaps the ball to Jordan Love. Listen in.
What's the likelihood that Elton returns at some point this season? This is my first game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd say it's highly unlikely. It's a shame because he was one of the first guys we drafted when I got here, and just been through a lot with him, and more obviously a lot of great moments. And it's a shame because he's one of our real leaders on our team.
Would you think of what Sean did at center, and is he going to start there moving forward?
Yeah, he'll start there. I thought he did a pretty good job.
What did you like about what he did? Obviously, you've seen him quite a bit through training camp and all that.
Well, I think anytime just you have a new center coming and you're most concerned about the operation. And I thought our operation was pretty clean in terms of the quarterback center exchange. I thought there were some things offensively, the operation wasn't good enough, but in regards to his ability and what he's responsible for, the communication and just making sure that we're getting the ball back to the quarterback, I thought he did a great job with that.
And I know it's only half a season with Elton, but did you see enough to think that he is a center long term, or is that all up for discussion?
Yeah, I think he did a really good job, and I think the more he played, the more comfortable he got within that position. And like I said, it's an unfortunate deal.
Is Dobbs okay?
He should be good to go.
What's the challenge that Jameis is going to throw at you guys?
Well, I'm very familiar with Jameis going back to my days in Atlanta. A guy that's obviously played a ton of ball. He plays fearless. He's going to let it rip. And just, I would say more than anything, he's a big time. I think he's a really good leader, a big time energy guy. And like I said, he's just going to, and we know he'll let it rip.
Matt, you talk a lot about the process. When the results are what they've been the past couple of weeks, does that force you in any way to go back and reevaluate the process and see if anything needs to change?
Yeah, I think you're always doing that. That's a constant evaluation, just making sure you're maximizing your time, where you devote your resources. And so that'll constantly be evaluated.
What do you think it is that does need to change to maximize the talent on the offense?
Well, I think we need to play clean football. I think that's the first and foremost when you look at it. A lot of self-inflicted just mistakes, whether it's false starts. We had a couple of illegal formations. Every individual's got a responsibility on every play. And if you're not clean, if one guy's not clean, they can go to crap. So unfortunately, we haven't been clean enough, I think, consistently enough as an offense, because we've done some decent things. I mean, I look at some of our ability to move the chains on third down has been pretty good. Unfortunately, we've put ourselves in some tough situations over the last 2 weeks where, we just haven't been able to score points.
Those are things that are taught, right? Don't cover up the tight end, the snap count. Those are messages that you give to the players. Is it just not getting through, or why do you think that you continue to see that?
Well, I think there was 2 instances, right? And I would put put the first one on myself on when Kennard was in there at tight end, a position he hasn't been, very often. And then the other one is in 2-minute, and that's where we have to have guys that are clearly communicating with one another. I mean, I think we have enough experience where that should not happen.
Matt, you always say it begins with me, right? First of all, you're not going to give up play calling, I assume.
No.
I'm not suggesting you should. My question is, what can you do better then? Because you're always...
Well, yeah, I think it always starts, you have to look inward. And, I think, especially when you go against teams that are good football teams, and the complexion of each game is going to be a little bit different in regards to sometimes, like I told the team today, I don't care if we win 3-0 or 49-48. Bottom line is, we have to find a way to get it done. Otherwise, you get criticized, and that's just the way it is. So I think that especially as the play caller, you're trying to put people in the best position possible to go out there and have success. And when we're not having collective success, then you're constantly, you have to challenge yourself to do better, to find something else in order to go out there and move the ball and score points.
Matt, as the play caller, you had the tie that was 40-40, but the 3 losses are really low-scoring games. How does that strike you as a play caller in charge of you?
Yeah, that's always tough. That's always tough. And, I think over time we've done a pretty good job at scoring points. Unfortunately, in 3 games this season, haven't scored enough. So,
after looking back at Sunday's game with how defenses are defending you, do you see opportunities to be more aggressive, whether it's play calling, decision, to try to stress opponents?
I mean, we are trying a lot to try to push the ball down the field. It just depends on what you're seeing. I mean, you can force it down the field, and we did it a couple weeks ago, and it was an interception. So, I think the whole thing for us, and if you look at our track record, our history, is we have to be efficient and effective, especially when we're getting shell defenses. You have to be able to run the football. And if you're not as efficient at that, or getting big gains versus lighter boxes, it's going to be more difficult on everybody as an offense. That's just the numbers game.
What will Golden do this week?
We'll try to integrate him back into practice and see where he's at.
What did you think about how Bo fared at wide receiver the other night, and with the injuries you have at receiver, is that where he's going to be going moving forward?
I would say it's case by case. Certainly, we think a lot of him at corner, and he's done a nice job there. I know he hasn't gotten any game reps, but we see him every day in practice. So it was one of those things of necessity, I would say, last week, especially when you were dealing with 3 guys that were limited in some capacity. I think it's always a danger when you go in. You can't go into a game with just 2 healthy receivers. So that was just the case for that game. But I thought overall, I was really pleased with this effort. You know what you're going to get from Bo. You're going to get the guy that strains and does everything the right way. So I thought it was a really, really good performance for somebody considering all the circumstances going into that game.
Different has Pratt been this week for facing a myriad of different quarterbacks? I mean, this year, I mean, you had Flacco, you had Brissett, you have a new quarterback this week. You don't have a lot of tape for the last several weeks with your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's always a challenge in regards to trying to just guess what people are how they're gonna attack you. So it does put a little bit more on your plate in that regard, but also it just reinforces the importance of trusting your rules in regards to whatever you're playing defensively, and making sure everybody's on the same page.
So right there, Matt LaFleur talking over a bunch of things, as you got to see his face there with that little audio for a second. But I think the most alarming thing to come out of that press conference was, of course, the news that Elton Jenkins most likely will not return this season. A center that has meant so much to this team was at the guard, and then wanted to get paid a lot more when he was moved over to center, as at least for just some insurance, if that was going to be his position moving forward, because guards get paid more than centers. And this is just unfortunate. You let Josh Myers walk to the New York Jets, and you replace him with Elton Jenkins, hoping it's an upgrade, and now you lose Elton for the year, and pretty much you're back to square one of Sean Ryan, who he took part in some center reps, at least outside of the season, whether it be training camp or OTAs, when Josh Myers was the center for the Packers. And it's one of those situations where this O-line has been so iffy that you lose your leader on the O-line. And because of that move, Sean Ryan goes to center, then you really have to trust Darian Kennard as maybe your, eligible receiver, your sixth lineman, if you want to take advantage of run plays, even though it didn't look too great against the Eagles, or Jordan Morgan. Now Jordan Morgan is your everyday guard, and that being your right guard because Aaron Banks is left. So that's what you trusted Jordan Morgan to be. Your line being Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Sean Ryan now at center, Jordan Morgan at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle is kind of what you imagined if Elton wasn't going to be long-term on this team, because he's been a part of the Packers since 2019. Didn't look too great against the Eagles, especially in the run game. So definitely the most concerning part of what came out of Matt LaFleur's press conference. When we come back on WFRV Plus Sports Night, we're going to talk to QB1 Jordan Love about what happened in that defeat. Another game where you kind of stop yourself and you start thinking, where is the love? Because this guy was so good through 7 games, or at least showed flashes of being so good. And these last 2 have been far from it. So that'll be next on WFRV Plus Sports Night. And we welcome you back to WFRV Plus Sports Night. Cameron there with you all night long. We just heard from Matt LaFleur on a whole lot. But after that Eagles game, you kind of caught yourself wondering, this offense is it an offense at this point? They just haven't been good enough. And I think everyone would attest to that on the offensive side of the football, including Jordan Love. Through, his first 7 games had a touchdown pass, and his completion percentage was over 70%. You kind of thought, okay, if he can get the yardage up and continue to limit those turnovers, this guy could be in the MVP conversation. And now it's kind of played his way out of it these last 2 ball games in losses to both Carolina and Philadelphia. So let's hear from Jordan Love about, honestly, just about everything in regards to his performance, the team's performance, and how they can recoup after these last 2 losses with 8 games left moving forward.
Up and can turn great plays into sometimes negative plays.
When you look back at the film, what was the hardest thing for you to watch just offensively?
I think for me personally, it's always anytime you have a turnover. So, the turnover, the fumble, that's definitely the hardest part for me. Knowing the situation that we're in right there, needing points and just looking back on it's tough. You got to be smarter in those situations and take care of the ball at all times.
Is that trying to do too much, or is it just bad luck?
You could say it's trying to do too much, for sure. At that point, you kind of wrapped up, just take the sack right there, and we're in field goal range. So, it's kind of that mindset of just live to fight another day. Obviously, I'm trying to make a play, trying to get the ball out to Josh and not take a sack. And you're not thinking you're going to fumble the ball, but it happens. So there's areas to learn from and improve on.
I asked that because, like, 3 plays prior, looks like you're bottled up and you run for a first down. So there's some good with trying to extend plays, and then there's that. How do you find the fine line?
Yeah, like you said, there's always a fine line. I'm always going to try and fight for everything and try and make a play when sometimes there's nothing there. But I think in that situation, you kind of wrapped up. Just give it up. Just go down, take the sack, and obviously the worst case scenario in that situation is a turnover. Losing points and not being able to end the half with a field goal there.
Jordan, what couple games happened right after the offense was really clicked in the second half against the Steelers? Why do you think it kind of changed like that in that time?
Yeah, no, I think it all comes down to just making plays and, like I said before, just executing. You look back at that Steelers game, and I think we were executing at a very high level. Everybody around us making plays, focused on the details, and we took advantage of a lot of the looks that they're giving us. And I think we're right there. We're right there as an offense, and it just comes down to those small details that are, I think, holding us back. But we have everything we need on offense. We got the right players. Obviously, we've got some injuries, but we still got the right mindset. We just got to find ways to focus more, hone in on those little details, and execute.
What's the level of frustration after how these last 2 weeks have gone offensively?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like I said, post game, it's always frustrating. I think, if you have a bad, performance on offense and you win the game, it might not be as frustrating. But I think you go back and you look at the film, and there's still so many areas you look at as an offense. You're like, man, we got to clean this up. So I think you compound that with an L, and obviously the defense playing a pretty good game, and us not being able to put up points right there makes it more frustrating. And it's 2 weeks in a row. We haven't scored as many points as we need to win the game. So I think all that being said, it's frustrating, but I still think we're right there where we need to be. We just got to find ways to finish with touchdowns, limit the turnovers, finish with the ball on every drive, and we'll be where we want to be.
Jordan, you were
Quarterback can get hot, get into a rhythm, right? Maybe you thought you complete 20 in a row. From a play caller standpoint, do you have to find the play caller also have to find a rhythm and kind of get hot as well? And what role do you guys play in helping that do that?
Yeah, I think everybody on the field has that feeling, where you can get hot and get rolling, kind of just get in the zone. So, whether that's play calling, whether that's player, everybody has that feeling. And it definitely, it's not just, the play calls got to be perfect. We got to go out there and execute the play calls to make some of this stuff work and to flow the right way. So, I think when all those things are flowing, you got the right play call, execution's perfect, that's when you're at your best as offense, and it feels like, you're unstoppable. And then obviously, whether it's play call, whether it's lack of execution, penalties, just anything, will kind of make it feel like, oh, we're not flowing, we're not in that zone, and things aren't going as well. But I think we're right there where we need to be able to get back into that mode.
Jordan, you and Elton, you didn't have like a full off season to practice and work at that center guard relationship. Now he goes down. How difficult has it been throughout this season to try to have some of that chemistry and connection with you and the offensive line because of all the injuries and Elton moving down?
Yeah, it's always tough. Injuries are very tough. Like you said, losing Elton, the guy who's been our center is tough, especially at that position where, like you said, me and him have been getting all the reps together and things like that. So, it'll be a quick turnaround for Sean to come in and be able to, get rolling and us get on the same page with just that exchange. But, you look at it, I think he did a great job coming to the game on Monday. Obviously, I think all of our exchanges were pretty clean. So, we just got to keep building on that. But it's always, like I said before, that next man up mentality. I think Sean's done a great job of staying ready, wherever he's been called at this season. And it'll be no different for him at center.
Jordan, speaking of that, Jordan, I honestly have no idea the answer to this, which is why I'm asking. Do you have to meet with the center to make sure you're on the same page, or what is that relationship like getting ready for a Sunday?
Yeah, I think it always starts with the snap. So, when he comes in the game, we're going to get snaps on the side, make sure everything's feeling right. And then as far as just communication and things like that go, we'll get another week this week to kind of hone in on all those things. Obviously, we'll be on silent count with the away game, so that plays a whole other factor in Sean's thought process. Being under center, so obviously he's got a lot on his plate, and we'll just kind of work through the week. But as far as exchange, I feel like the center quarter exchange is the most important thing where we got to be dialed in on that.
Jordan, you talked about execution. I know Matt wants to stay aggressive. You talked about that earlier today. But is that tough to just kind of balance it being aggressive versus just moving the chains, running the ball, having time to do what you need to do?
Yeah, I think it's all play predicated on what we got, what the defensive look they're giving us. But yeah, it's always about being smart, being able to move the ball. Obviously, you want to have these explosive plays. You want to get off the field quick, put up points fast. But sometimes, the defense is making us drive the ball down the field, and we got to stay patient with that. We got to be able to drive and finish some of those longer drives in the end zone with touchdowns. Obviously, I think we haven't been able to do that the past couple weeks, and we'll find a way to do that.
Everyone wants to be an analyst on social media. I don't have your playbook. I don't know the progressions, play in, play out. But there are clips of guys that were open Monday night. Did you see that when you watch the film, and how does that happen?
Yeah, I have to see exactly what clips you're talking about, what plays you're talking about. But sure, yeah, you can look at every play and find guys that are open. That could be a case. But obviously, I'm going to stay true to my reads and, play the plays, how I feel best and try and be at my best every day. And that's what I got to do for the team, for the receivers, for the tight ends, for everybody. I got to be at my best and try to find who's open. At the end of the day, we're going to block all the noise out and all the stuff that's out there and just go out, play our ball up.
And that's exactly what this Packers team has to do and what this Packers team hasn't done the last 2 weeks. That Jordan Love talking about his performance against the Eagles, which, when your offense scores 7 points, obviously the quarterback didn't do what he was supposed to, or at least wasn't as efficient as you would have wanted. But I think that's the word that sticks out, or even lack thereof. Efficiency. 55.6% completion percentage, worst this season. First time he's ever gone below 60. I think maybe even below 65. But 20 of 36. He threw the ball 37 times, remember, against Pittsburgh, but he completed 29 passes and had a stretch where he completed 20 consecutive. So I think that's the concern with Jordan Love. And I'm glad that Green Bay Nation co-host Ryan Wood asked him about the progressions and what he watched on tape, because there are some very vivid ones out there, or at least obvious ones. There are guys coming across the field that are open. The offensive line doesn't give Jordan enough time, or he doesn't go through his natural progression. It seems like he's a bit hurried up, and that obviously could be because of his lackluster offensive line. It could also be the level of pressure that's coming to him. But you also heard Jordan right there saying, I love the pressure. I want the ball in my hands. So I think we'll see it all boil up into one kind of pot of what we expect Jordan Love to be moving forward in that Giants game, because the last 2 games just haven't been good enough. He talks about not turning the ball over, and despite his completion percentage and his passer rating being so good through the first 7 games, it's quite overshadowed by no touchdowns, 2 picks. He's lost a few fumbles over these last couple of games, both being at home. Carolina, a team you should beat. The Eagles, a team that you had the chance to beat because of a championship caliber defense. So again, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to wait. But when we come back on WFRV Plus Sports Night, we'll wrap things up, talk a little New York Giants as the Pack get ready to hopefully not lose 3 in a row on Sunday in the Big Apple. That's next. And we're back. WFRV Plus Sports Night. Let's wrap up the show by previewing a matchup that is so interesting. And why I say interesting is at the beginning of the season, you chalked up this Giants game as okay. Doesn't matter what situation the New York Football Giants are in, you're winning this game. This is a game you should win. Should has turned into a bit of a, how do I put this? Bit of a reactive word, in my opinion. And why I say that is every time you say the word should with this Packers team, you just don't know what you're going to get. Now, of course, the Giants are in utter chaos. They fired Brian Daboll, their head coach. Jackson Dart, their quarterback, is in concussion protocol for what feels like, the 3rd or 4th time. Jameis Winston reportedly named the starter over Russell Wilson, who had to finish that last game against the Bears in which Chicago came back and beat New York. So just a team in disarray. That being said, the last time Jameis faced the Packers, he threw 5 touchdowns. And he's a guy that, and I know the jokes are out there, he's a guy that'll either throw 4 touchdowns or throw it to the other team 4 times, but still have 600 yards under his belt. Remember that 30-30 season he had in Tampa? He's a hard guy to read. And so far this season, that's who the Packers have faced. Joe Flacco in Cleveland. Joe Flacco was the starter, but you're talking about an older guy that's been in the league for a while. Then Joe Flacco and Joe Burrow went down and Jake Browning was benched. And then after that, Jacoby Brissett when Kyler Murray was down. And I mean, they were so close to facing Andy Dalton instead of Bryce Young in Carolina. And now another backup quarterback who's been in the league for a while, has seen it all and likes to huck it. And I think that works to the benefit of Green Bay as all the rest of the quarterbacks maybe are a little more conservative with throwing the football. Jameis Winston will let it rip. Maybe we talked to Xavier McKinney today, and he's like, yeah, that means more opportunities. It's a guy in X that said so far this season's been boring. He's just been back there. No one likes to throw it deep because with Xavier McKinney, a guy that had, 8 picks last year, you don't want to throw it in his vicinity. So I'm curious to see how the Giants game plan without Cam Scadaboo, their leading running back, their rookie, and without their starting quarterback, Jackson Dart. There's not really much moxie with that team without those two. And with Russell Wilson, the Giants couldn't jive. With Jameis Winston, can they? I don't know. He'll try to do the thing where he eats the W. Honestly, this Packers team, they need a convincing win. And I know Matt LaFleur said if we win 3-0, if we win 49-48, a win's a win. But this Packers team is in dire need of a win that proves to the rest of the NFL, oh, wait, the Packers are still in consideration. Because right now they're 3rd in the division. The Bears are 6-3. The Lions, I think, 7-2. And not just that, in the NFC conversation, they've dropped all the way down to the 7th seed when 2 weeks ago they were the 1 seed. So curious to see what that looks like. But that'll do it for this edition of WFRV Plus Sports Night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow when we finally get to attend Packers practice. We'll talk to LaFleur and a couple other guys in the locker room. Have a great night.